Welcome to Hockey Nights in Vegas, episode 58. My name is Eddie Rivkin. I am joined, as always, by Chris Chapman of Fox Sports Las Vegas. This episode, along with all others, is brought to you by the Las Vegas Advisor, www.lasvegasadvisor.com, your home for everything Las Vegas. Super Bowl tips. It's Super Bowl week here in Las Vegas. And you know what that means? Every stripper in the world is here in Vegas. So if you need strip club tips, go to www.lasvegasadvisor.com. We also have restaurant tips, show tips, tons of really insider gaming tips, both for slot machines and table games. Basically, anything and everything you need to know in Las Vegas, you can find at the Las Vegas Advisor, www.lasvegasadvisor.com, and by my very good friend, Dr. John Pierce at agelessforever.net. He's my doc. He's making me look as good as I can be, which ain't saying much. But if you need a doctor who's going to look in on you, who's going to be in on all of your appointments, is going to take care of you as a person and make you the best person you can be, www.agelessforever.net. My good friend John Pierce is the guy to talk to. Now that we got through that, chap, we're back from New York.
Yeah.
We ate everything in New York. The Golden Knights achieved something this season that they didn't in last year's New York trip. They got a bunch of points. And it was your first go-around. It was sort of a nice trip to remember our friend Joe Payne, who I did the trip with last year. And but let's talk hockey. The New Jersey game led to arguably the saltiest Coach Cassidy that we've seen. Basically said his team was a beer league team and was playing like it was a preseason game. And we're like, oh boy, this road trip's going to be something. So let's start in your home state of New Jersey and quickly make our way through the trip.
All right. Well, New Jersey, initial impressions of the arena are I've seen better. Disappointing, I think, for me, growing up as a Devils fan, my first time, the Prudential Center, just there really wasn't much of an atmosphere. I thought the sight lines were not that good for us. Me being a shorter guy, hard to see because the way, these are first world problems I'm complaining about. So forget that shit. But, game wise, I thought that the Golden Knights, they obviously scored enough goals to win that game. You score 5 goals. I think it was only the third time in their history that they've scored 5 goals and lost. So anytime you score 5 goals, that should be more than enough to win. And that's not a Logan Thompson thing. The team was bad in front of him. Sure, he let up, I think, maybe 1 or 2 goals that he shouldn't have. But that doesn't change the fact that a bunch of those goals they gave up. Especially the overtime goal. Brett Howden tries a stretch pass. It's tipped and picked off by a player on the New Jersey Devils. He finds Tyler Toffoli, and Toffoli buries it. And the weird thing about that was it was his 3rd goal of the night, but I don't think anybody in the arena realized because there were no hats thrown on the ice until 30 seconds after the fact. But nonetheless, should have you got a point in a game you probably could have gotten 2, maybe didn't deserve any. I don't know. I guess it depends which way you look at it. But, it led to, I think, one of their better games of the season the following night on Long Island.
I think that it was really sort of disappointing. You have an explosion in the second period. You go from down 1 to up 2, and then you basically give it away as if, honestly, and they played like they didn't give a fuck. They didn't defend at all. It was, not for me, but I think that it was anger inspiring for upper management, and certainly the saltiest comments we've ever heard out of Bruce.
Yeah,
tells you right where he was.
Not happy.
Not a happy camper.
And that's probably an understatement.
and we're left saying, well, there's no days off. We're going out to the island. I wonder what we're going to get. And lo and behold, against the team that is, it's fair to say, offensively challenged, in the Islanders, they really put up a much more Golden Knight-like Golden Knight game. I mean, they dominated the game.
They've dominated the Islanders twice this season, and it's a team that traditionally they've kind of struggled with because of the way the Islanders play. But I think you get Aiden Hill back in that game, and that was obviously a big boost. But in that game, we saw Sheldon Rempel score his first career NHL goal. The line of Nick Waugh, Jonathan Marchessault, and Ivan Barbashev. I'm sorry, I got
just
that.
Elevated.
Yeah,
just completely elevated their game.
Like Nick Waugh to me, and we talked about it last night because he had another goal last night, but he's been their best player over the last few weeks. You could see the confidence that he's playing with. But in that Islander game, he really he was good in New Jersey. He was probably the only player who was good in New Jersey. But in the Islander game, you can see that his play has been elevated over the last few games. And I mean, it was a game where I enjoyed it because it was my first trip to Long Island to see the Islanders play ever. And you got to see the new arena that looks like a Dick's Sporting Goods. But inside, I thought the atmosphere
very
was
nice.
It was a fantastic atmosphere. They do a really good job. And honestly, I'm looking forward to going back to a game there because I thought it was a really cool rink, and I thought the fans were really into it. And look, fortunately for the Golden Knights, I know they did give up a shorthanded goal in that game, but they were the better team and they responded well following the disaster in New Jersey. And I think that's what you want. That's what you want from a defending Stanley Cup champ. All right, we played shitty. We weren't happy with the way we played the night before. Short turnaround. New Jersey game is done. Let's go out and beat the Islanders, and that's what they did.
I want to give you the opportunity now to address the second most controversial thing that we heard while we were out in New York, and Jonathan Marchessault, who is never
shy for words,
never shy for a good quote, was asked specifically by you to respond to the comments that Coach Cassidy made regarding their performance in New Jersey. And go ahead, chap. You can take the story from here.
Well, I will, because I don't remember the exact quote, but I will paraphrase. But basically, it was like, well, he's the coach. He's going to say what he's going to say, and we're the players, and we're going to respond, or we're going to play. Not a ringing endorsement, I don't think. But look, they responded, and whether it was because of things that Bruce said to them or not, at the end of the day, they're professionals, and they know they played like shit the night before. And they have a captain and a leader in Mark Stone who won't tolerate that. And they have a coach and a leader in Bruce Cassidy who's not going to tolerate that. The difference is Mark Stone won't call guys out, or Mark Stone won't say, we played like shit. We played like a beer league team. Bruce Cassidy will. And whether it was the response of the players or it was because of Bruce or whatever it was, the message got through because they played pretty good against actually, I would say they probably played better against the Rangers than they did against the Islanders in a great building and against a team that has Stanley Cup aspirations. They've kicked the shit out of the Rangers twice this season. So
in 8 days or 9 days,
yeah. I mean, put up 5 goals in both games. Again, Aiden Hill played. I think we'll have this discussion after we talk about the Edmonton game. But Aiden Hill was really good in that game, and he needed to be. But what you saw in that Rangers game was, once again, you saw the elevation of Nick Waugh moving up and playing extremely well. We saw Sheldon Rempel have a goal again, and then we saw Jonathan Marchessault 3 goals. Don't give a shit. One of them was an empty netter. They all count the same. And I mean, it really was. And I know the Detroit game, you were there, and they fell behind early, but I thought progressively on that in New York, they played better every night. And what was kind of cool about the New York game is we were in front of George McPhee. He was right behind us in the press box.
above, just so the fans know, the press box at Madison Square Garden is two-tiered, and the writers and bloggers and us, we sit on the first lower level, and above and behind us are the broadcaster suites and the executive suites and stuff like that. And George had the window of his suite open. And let's just say there was a play where Aiden Hill covered the puck, and there was a fairly lengthy pause before the referee blew the whistle, and we heard somebody yell, "Blow the fucking whistle!" And we're both like, well, we don't hear that too often in the press box. And we both sort of do a rollover, and there was George McPhee hanging out the window of his suite, and he was hot.
Yes,
he was hot.
Yeah.
So that was an interesting moment.
Yeah, and kind of an interesting little thing about MSG. Like, for those who have never been or don't know, the rink is on the 5th floor of the building. So, like, there's 4 stories underneath you. There's a theater. I'm not sure what story the Paramount Theater. I think it's called the Paramount Theater. It was when I was a kid. But there's a theater underneath you where they actually sometimes will hold boxing matches that aren't like large scale boxing matches, and they have shows and stuff there. And there's a theater somewhere between the 1st and the 4th floor. And then right underneath you is a train station that goes down probably 4 stories. And so, by the way, good bagels at the fucking Penn Station, by the way. I picked one up on my trip back to New Jersey on Wednesday when I got on the train and went down the shore, and I picked up an everything bagel with a fucking schmear. And I can tell you, it was a pretty damn good bagel for you don't expect that at a train station. But then I remember, it's New York. They got good bagels everywhere, unlike Las Vegas. But I like the setup of the press box because it's on a gondola, and there's kind of nothing underneath you until you get like maybe like down in the lower levels of where the fans are sitting. And then there's stuff above you. There's fans like kind of diagonal above you, which is kind of interesting. But then there's like a little pit, I guess you would describe it, between us and the fans. So, because otherwise we'd be blocking them. So it's a really interesting setup. It's cool because it's one of the oldest. Well, it is the oldest rink in the NHL. I know they've renovated it and rebuilt it a few times, but it's still pretty cool to be in there and to witness the Golden Knights. I mean, my first trip as a member of the media to MSG, I had been there numerous times growing up as a kid, going to see all sorts of shit from Hulk Hogan to Rangers hockey to the circus. And so just a really cool moment for me career-wise to be at MSG and then morning skate, I geeked out because we went down and I got to step on the ice. And it's like, how many people ever have the opportunity to step on the ice at MSG? Not a lot. So, all in all, I thought New York, very successful trip. You got 5 points out of a possible 6. So, no complaints. I mean, look, they played better every game. Nick Waugh got better every game. And I think at the end of the day, they probably weren't too disappointed to come home with 5 points out of a possible 8.
Yeah, I mean, the takeaway from the Red Wings game is the Red Wings were raring to go, and the Golden Knights were playing their 4th game in
6 nights.
Six nights, and
actually, if
traveled
you really want
the
to get
night before.
4th game in a week.
Yeah,
5th game in a week because they played the Penguins on that Sunday or Saturday.
They fell behind, they caught up, and listen, I don't want to say they were looking forward to the All-Star break and seeing a Villa in Cabo, but they didn't seem to have the oomph to want to come back. They were just like, fuck it, let's just get out of here. So that's the recap of the game in Detroit that I went to that Chap didn't go to. They lose 5-2, 5 points out of 8. Into the All-Star break we go. Jack Eichel's hurt. The National Hockey League, and all their infinite stupidity, chooses not to have a representative from the Vegas Golden Knights, let me say the defending Stanley Cup champion Golden Knights, at the All-Star game. Chap and I watched a grand total of 1 minute and 47 seconds. I don't give a shit about skills competitions or 3-on-3 played at 1/10 speed.
Yeah.
To me, it's all a pile of hot garbage. I'm glad I didn't spend a bunch of money to go to Toronto in the middle of the winter. Who cares that Connor McDavid won $1 million because it's only $18 after taxes? But the
He
big
won $1
take,
million Canadian, right?
yeah, which is even less than
Yeah, he
$18.
So basically, he lost money to go play in this skills competition.
But the biggest takeaway from the All-Star weekend, other than Chap and I not giving one shit about it, is there isn't going to be an All-Star game the next 2 years. The NHL and the NHLPA have agreed to a nations tournament that will be 7 games in 9 nights with the United States, Canada, Finland, and Sweden,
Yes.
I think, are the 4 teams. And it will be held in 2 NHL cities. And it's a best of the best. And a lot of players have been advocating for a real deal competitive instead of an exhibition. And I suspect that Vegas will not get that, even though they probably should.
Well, they can
But I
certainly
think
host it.
I think it's a fantastic idea, and I hope that they do it every year as opposed to this All-Star game debacle.
Well, and
And the second,
I think
go ahead.
about that game or that little series, and I think about potential members of the Golden Knights who could be participating in that. I mean, I think obviously my first thought is William Karlsson, probably for Sweden. I know there's a lot of really good Swedes, but it's hard to find a two-way center better than William Karlsson in a lot of places, let alone Sweden. So I have to think he'd probably be in for that. Mark Stone, Shea Theodore, Alex Pietrangelo, probably for Team Canada. And here's the real one, maybe in goal for Team Canada, Aiden Hill.
It's not maybe. It's him and Hellebuyck from
Well,
Winnipeg.
Hellebuck's
And
American. He's an American kid.
the oops, that'll sound really good on this fucking broadcast. No, Aiden Hill is definitely a huge opportunity. But last night I came home after the game and I was watching the recap on the NHL network. And Mike Kelly was talking about the international series and the Olympics. And he said there aren't 4 better right wingers for the Canadian team than Jonathan Marchessault right now.
Yeah.
And he said he's just flat money.
Well, he played for Team Canada in the World Championships. One year it was him, Shea Theodore, and Mark Stone who participated. I heard some of Mark Stone's comments yesterday. I think it was yesterday or the day before. And I think he's kind of wondering if he'll be part of Team Canada in 2 years for the Olympics because of his age. He's going to be 33. So, and Alex Pietrangelo was a member of a gold medal winning Canadian Olympic team the last time. I think it was the last time the NHL was there. But I think, look, Jonathan Marchessault, I think I've said it on the podcast. If not, I'm saying it now. I do believe when the Golden Knights retire their first jersey, it's going to be him. I don't think there will ever be another player in Golden Knights history that wears number 81. But the guy continues to prove that he's one of the best scorers in the NHL. I mean, he's a streaky scorer, but he's fucking good. And this is, you can't make up his story and his path to the NHL and all the bullshit time spent in the AHL and multiple teams and never truly been given a shot until he got here. And I know he scored 30 goals in Florida the year before he got to Vegas, but Florida didn't think too much of him, that they were willing to let him go. And hey, by the way, take Riley Smith too. Look, it's for Jonathan Marchessault. I wonder if he's going to be a member of the Golden Knights come next year when this tournament takes place, because I think there's certainly a lot to happen between now and then when it comes to Jonathan Marchessault and a contract. I'm of the belief, and I think we're on different sides on this. I'm of the belief that he will take a hometown discount. I don't think he wants. I think he wants to stay here, but I don't think he'll
Nope.
take a hometown discount to the point of being insulted by an offer either.
Okay, well, we're gonna. All right, so let's ride this train for a couple of minutes. He is going to ask for how many years?
Well, let me see what his age. I don't know his exact age, so I'm looking that up right now.
He's 33, I think.
He's 33. Well, I think because he got to the league a little bit later in his career, he really didn't become a full-time player until the season before he was drafted by Vegas. I mean, it was the first time he played more than 50 games. So even though he's 33, I don't feel like he's got the wear and tear of a 33-year-old in the NHL. So I think he's probably got 3 years left at a high ceiling player.
Okay.
I think.
Okay, so you say 3 years.
I think any more than that, and you're running the risk of
dead money.
Yes, which
Okay,
is not
so
something
3
this team
years.
does.
Riley Smith signed for 3 years for 5, and they traded him. Jonathan Marchessault is going to be 33 into his year 36 season and has won a Conn Smythe. What number are you going to give Jonathan Marchessault for 3 years?
Well, right now he's making exactly $5 million a year.
Right.
I think that's the number.
Stop it. Stop it. You think that Jonathan Marchessault is going to take 3 by 5? You're out of your fucking mind.
I don't think they offer him any more than that.
Okay. And then what happens?
I think he takes it.
No way. Joe and I, our dear friend Joe who passed away, used to bet pizza. That was the wager.
Okay.
Metro Pizza. Okay. The wager is he's not taking 3 by 5. My counter offer is 2 by 6. I use as a reference one big game James Neal, who asked for 5 by 6 after 1 year with the Vegas Golden Knights, and right now is probably cleaning up peep show stalls in Calgary somewhere because he never really did much of anything in the NHL after he completely wildly over asked for his money. But they're of nearly the same age.
Yeah.
So there's no way he's taking 3 by 5.
I don't think this organization is in the market of, and I think they've shown in the past, they made one mistake contract-wise, and I think that was re-signing Marc-Andre Fleury after year 1. It got them into a little bit of a funky cap situation, and when it came time to have to move Jonathan Marc-Andre Fleury, they kind of screwed the pooch a little bit. But it worked out. I don't think money-wise we're that far off, right? You're 2 by 6, that's 12 million. I'm 3 by 5, that's 15. Maybe there's something in the middle, maybe 2 years at 6.5. But I don't think they're going to offer him more than $15 million over the life of the contract. And I think the term for Marchessault might be more important than the money. So, like, if they offered him 3 by 4, maybe he takes that.
Come on.
I think they're going to give him 3 years.
Come on. Do we have a drug test for this podcast?
I don't think they give him 2 years.
You seriously think that the Conn Smythe winner is going to take less money than Riley Smith?
No, but that's what I'm saying.
You said 3 by 4.
Term is more important.
But
So,
term is the thing that the Golden Knights don't want.
but that's going
If
to be what
our
he wants.
right, and when not often do they capitulate to what the player wants. I mean, listen, they've got an albatross hanging over their head in a couple of years, named Alex Petrangelo's deal.
Yeah,
You want to
because
talk about a guy who you want to talk about a
Petrangelo,
guy who's got miles.
after this season, he still has 3 years remaining, making $8.8 million. You
And
know,
he plays a season and a half every season with the amount of minutes,
yes. And
right?
the issue they run into is Shea Theodore's contract only runs for another season after this. So they've got a ton of money tied up in the defense already. I think, there is some relief on the blue line because you're going to have Martinez likely come off at the end of this season. He's 36 right now. He's 5.5 million. But this is a situation where with Shea Theodore, you're going to need to find a way to get him re-signed. And you got to hope that the cap goes up enough because if I'm Shea Theodore, I want more money than Petrangelo.
Shea Theodore gets hurt an awful lot.
Well,
He misses
the
lots and lots and lots of games.
I think
I don't know if Shea Theodore is an 8.5 guy.
well, let's look at his games played. I mean, this year he's only played 20 games, so
I
this
mean,
is
Ben
not
Hutton's played 10 more games than him
but
for 800,000.
you know,
I
you're
know that's
you're
not a
you're
fair
you're right about
comparison.
one thing. It's that he does miss a lot of time. In
Big
2017,
chunks.
18, he played 61 games. 18, 19, he played 79. The year after, 71. But then you have 53, 78, 55, 20. So,
He won't even get to 55 this year.
no, it's impossible, right? He's only played 20 games, and there's no sign of him coming back. He may not get to 40.
So I don't know. We
I
should probably get away with this. But are you accepting the wager is he doesn't sign for 3 for 5? Marchessault.
let's I think let's wager term as opposed to money. I think he signs for 3 years. You think he signs for 2?
I don't think he signs for 5 million.
You think he's gonna want more?
Yeah. I mean, and he has the right to ask for
He
more.
absolutely
And
does.
the only way he's going to get more is with less term.
Yeah, I think they're definitely not gonna give him 3 by 6.
No.
So I think,
Unless he wins the Conn Smythe again.
yeah, but then are you giving the guy a contract based on his past accomplishments or what you're going to get out of him in the future?
That stuff gets you in big
Yeah.
trouble.
I'm not a big believer in you reward guys for seasons past. You pay guys based on
Upside
yes.
Potential.
But I still think there's a lot of upside with Marchessault because he doesn't have a ton of games played in the league. I mean, he came into the league 10 years ago, but he didn't become a full-time player until 2016-17. So I think that's probably going to be something that he's going to try to push. Hey, look, I don't have the wear and tear of a guy who's this age, but I'll stick by 3 by 5. I'll stick by 3 by 5.
Okay. No chance.
I can't wait to see. Now I'm
No
excited.
chance.
And the thing is, he won't tell us shit. So like, we could ask him, hey, contract talks, blah blah blah. No,
No.
never.
No.
None of these guys do.
No.
None of these guys
No.
do. I remember asking
Because
a couple guys.
if they did, they'd get shipped out of town in 0 seconds flat.
Yeah.
No.
Now
All right.
I will add the caveat to this that I'm all for him getting the most amount of money he could possibly get. Like, look, it's no offense to Bill Foley, no offense to Kelly McCrimmon, no offense to George McPhee. Fucking players get paid. They put asses in the seats. So I'm all for guys getting the most. And look, if a guy signs a deal and he doesn't live up to it, I don't fucking care. It's not my money. So I want the guy to get paid. I want him to make the most he could. Look, if he could sign for 3x8, I'd be like, hey, good for him. Not going to happen. But
No.
what they do these next 2 off seasons are going to be really, really interesting, because you look at some of the contracts that are coming up. We already mentioned Theodore, but you're going to have McNabb coming up in 2 years. You've got
Will Carrier.
Carrier, who's coming up in a couple years. Um, we already mentioned Marcia, so obviously, but Chandler Stevenson this year, Brett Howden and Keegan Colasar both hit UFA in 25, 26. So Michael Amadio, he's only on a 1-year deal. So it's going to be really, really interesting to see how they handle these next few off seasons, Eddie. And I'm looking forward to it, because we're going to see a team that looks completely different in 25, 26 than we do in 23, 24.
Well, the final comment on this before we fast forward to what's happening now is the good thing is the kids are getting lots of audition time.
Yeah.
And, they always said, oh, the Golden Knights have traded away their future. They give away all their firsts. They have no depth, and they have this, that, and they basically shit on the whole plan that the Golden Knights have sort of executed, which happened to bring them a Stanley Cup. Now, we've seen, well, they were down to their 10th defenseman, right?
Yeah.
And sorry, Braden Pahal, we miss you, but hey, shit happens, and it's the NHL.
It's a business, yeah.
But I mean, Caden Korzak looks like a keeper.
Yeah.
And Ron Bjerg looks like a solid 4th line guy.
Yeah.
A really responsible, and these kids are coming up and they're performing. Now, yes, part of it is the system. We've talked about that ad nauseum, but this organization has some depth, and let's just call it what it is. None of the top 15 picks that they have traded away since their inception are anything near bona fide superstars.
Yeah. Like
Peyton Krebs.
Nick Suzuki is the best player.
Closest.
Yes, but he's not a bona fide superstar.
And he's an everyday player. He's an above average, undersized, everyday player playing in Montreal.
Yeah.
But Glass, Krebs, what's a defenseman in Ottawa from the first year? Brandstrom, right? For where they were picked in, sorry, I'm stuttering because it pisses me off a little bit. From where they were picked in the draft, they're all busts.
Yeah.
They're straight up. These are top 10 picks in the NHL draft. Cody Glass can barely crack the lineup in Nashville.
Yeah.
If he's even there. I think he's in Nashville still.
Yeah. No, you're right. And
so they've mortgaged, they say, oh, they mortgaged the future. They mortgaged the future. Look what they've got back for those trades. Jack Eichel.
Yeah.
Mark Stone, right? I was sad to see Alex Tuck go. He was a fun interview, and listening to him talk about the Real Housewives of Summerlin was great entertainment, okay? But they got Jack Eichel.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think the organization is okay. Yes, they're going to get older, but there's a whole lot of people that we're seeing 5, 6, 8, 10 games for that show that there's a lot of potential there.
Yeah.
And the fact that they sort of they signed Ben Hutton, their daddy, the defenseman kid's daddy, 2 years at $800,000, right? He might almost be the odd man out if Korzak keeps playing that well.
Yeah, and I kind of mentioned that. I think the very first show we did to start the season, that he could eventually end up being the odd man out, which sucks because I really like Ben Hutton. But Korzak's played well when called upon. Cormier is with the big club. He was in the press box last night.
Yep.
I don't know if that's just because the Silver Knights are on their All-Star break and maybe he just happened to be in town. But, they've got to – this is the thing. Even some of the trades that they've made where they've traded – like they traded away Eric Holla. They got Nick Waugh in that deal. And while I like Eric Holla, I think he's a
except personally.
no, I actually like him personally too. Like I always had fun because he was sarcastic. I kind of enjoyed that. He wasn't the prototypical boring hockey player interview, but um, I take Nick Wow over Eric Holla every day of the week.
And twice on Sunday.
Yeah, like they certainly got the better end of that deal. I don't remember what
There's
they I don't remember what they traded for Alec Martinez, but I don't really give a shit because
there's
without
only
Alec Martinez,
one there's only one trade that they was bad for them. In all of this going into year 7, there's only one absolute shit turd of a trade. And it's the Tatar thing for 3 firsts.
yeah,
Or a first, second, and a third. And then but they flipped that trade into Pacioretty.
which they then Pacioretty gave him some pretty productive seasons,
Yep.
and
And then did the Max Pacioretty thing and got hurt.
yeah, I think he's
And
hurt again,
and
by the way.
and said some pretty negative things about the team.
Yeah,
Pacioretty did.
which surprised me because he was a guy I got to know a little bit. Obviously not away from the rink, but you know, guy who was always really open with me and friendly with me, and you know, we had heard that there were some issues in the locker room, and I remember that because they missed the playoffs that year. And I remember I was the one that asked, hey, we heard there were some locker room issues. We were still, it was weird because it was media locker cleanout day, but they came up and spoke to us on the pedestal where normally we would go in the locker room and talk to them. And I remember asking him specifically about distractions and, you know, problems in the locker room and lack of accountability and things like that. And he was like, no, none of that happened. And then he goes to Washington or Carolina, and first interview he does, he's basically saying the exact opposite of what he told us when we asked him about it. So um, I think he was a guy who probably knew he was going to be traded, and he probably didn't want to be traded because I think he really enjoyed living here. His parents were, his dad's a California guy, so I think he kind of enjoyed being on the West Coast. I remember him telling me one time, one of the things he loved was he'd go home after skate in the middle of February and he'd jump in the heated pool. You ain't doing that in fucking Montreal. Your pool's frozen.
Nope.
So I think he enjoyed it here, but I think at the end of the day, as you said, the Tatar trade, and that was another guy I really enjoyed, but it was a bad trade,
Yeah.
and they gave the Red Wings a lot for Tomas Tatar, and I don't know what
Yeah.
players the Wings drafted. Like I don't follow it that closely, but I'm guessing they probably ended up drafting a pretty decent player or two in
For
that
sure.
deal. So, but you know what? They won the Stanley Cup in 6 years. We can nitpick, but at the end of the day, they're fucking good at what they do, and there's a
Speaking
reason.
of what they do,
Yeah,
let's jump forward. We've been yapping for nearly 40 minutes. Um 30, 15, 6. 66 points in 51 games played. They're fourth in the Western Conference, but they're second in the Pacific. They're 7 points behind Vancouver. They're 7 points ahead of Edmonton, but Edmonton has 5 games in hand, and you can't count wins until you get them.
yeah,
But last night, coming out of the break, 2 well-rested teams. The absolute marquee matchup on the NHL calendar, the only late game. Edmonton winning 16 games in a row, looking to tie the 92-93 Pittsburgh Penguins, I think,
yep.
with 17.
That's what
They
that's what
come
it
into
is.
the Fortress. We had a feeling it might have been sort of like a playoff game, but I don't really think that it was. It wasn't very chippy at all.
No,
It was a very well played hockey game. The Golden Knights, whether they say much about it or not, I think took a little joy in ending the streak. in the Fortress last night and preventing Edmonton from getting that record.
Yeah.
But all in all, I mean, how important was the game to you? I guess that's where we'll start.
Well, I think it was important from a multitude of perspectives. For starters, you had Aiden Hill against a team that he's potentially going to see in the playoffs, and he was lights out. Like, he made some huge saves in that game. I think that's one of the first things you look at. You also look at getting William Karlsson back. That's big. Traditionally, this is a team that kind of doesn't always play well after long periods of rest. We saw it against Anaheim following Christmas. They didn't play well in that game. It was the first game back after the break. They had played shitty going into that game, and it carried over. But I think maybe the most important factor is you beat the Edmonton Oilers, who had their two best players in the lineup. In fact, I think you could say they probably had their 4 or 5 best players in the lineup.
All of them.
Yeah. And the Golden Knights not only beat them, held them to 1 goal, which came on a shorthanded 2-on-0 opportunity following a turnover. Other than that, defensively, the Golden Knights were in the lanes all night. They slowed down Connor McDavid, which, if you believe is possible, they did. Leon Draisaitl was a non-factor. Evander Kane, non-factor. Zach
Nugent
Hyman,
Hopkins. Yeah, all of them.
Nugent Hopkins, non-factor. So I think at the end of the day, and I may get in trouble when I say this, but the Golden Knights are better than the Edmonton Oilers. They're better 5-on-5 than the Edmonton Oilers. Golden Knights committed, I think, 1 penalty in the entire game, and it ended up being negated a little later in the power play anyway. Look, they know how to play this team. And I know the game up there earlier in the year was a little bit more of a high-scoring affair, but Golden Knights were not playing great in late November. It came after a Calgary game, I believe, where they didn't play very well. But look, I mean, I think the Golden Knights proved that even without Jack Eichel and Shea Theodore and William Carrier, that when they're on their game, they're probably one of the 2 or 3 best teams in the NHL. And I think defensively, you had really big contributions, even though he's a forward. But Michael Amadio was amazing last night. He was really
he had maybe his best game.
Yeah. And
certainly his best game of this season.
I don't think he did anything
maybe
that
his
showed
best
up on
game
the
as a
stat
Golden
sheet.
Knight.
Like, I don't think he had any assists. He certainly didn't have a goal. But he was really, really fucking good. And Bruce Cassidy talked about it. That's what we want to get out of Mike. That's what we want to see from him more consistently. Michael Amadio is a guy who, this team, he's another guy under the radar. Like, nobody knew who the hell he was when they picked him up off waivers. But he was a key contributor to them. And Bruce brought up a goal that he scored against Dallas in the playoff series.
In the clinch game.
Yeah. So it started with a really good defensive play by him, and it culminates in a goal. But his play last night was inspiring, I think. And when you get a guy like that who's on your third line and he plays a game like that, where I don't, and it's interesting because Bruce kind of mentioned that he kind of slides under the radar a little bit because he doesn't play on special teams. But he's a big contributor to this team. And I think when he's not in the lineup, I think they miss him. Maybe not as much as a guy like, well, obviously not as much as a guy like William Karlsson but he's a good player. And you talked about Jonas Rondbjerg earlier. It's a big ask of him last night to play alongside Karlsson and Amadio. And I think
he was fine.
He met the challenge. The worry with me is I worry that they're going to lose him when they eventually have to put him on waivers, because I think he's an NHL player.
I think that a lot of the credit goes to the coaching staff. When they played them the first time, nobody knew who the Edmonton coach was.
Yeah.
But now they've got miles of film on them.
Yeah.
Right. And Edmonton, they stifled Edmonton to force Edmonton to do what they always revert to when they're getting beat. Right. They try everything they can try to keep Draisaitl and McDavid apart, to have two good lines on the top. And they've got a stacked top two lines, except that the top two lines didn't perform. And I told you when we were sitting there last night with about 12 minutes to go, right? Oh, McDavid and Draisaitl is back on the ice again, right?
Yeah.
And then Paul De Los Santos sitting next to us on the other side. Oh, the Godzilla line is back together.
Yeah.
And for the last 11 or 12 minutes of the game, the Golden Knights basically stifled them. They didn't roll up in a shell. They didn't play a 1-3-1. They didn't play a neutral zone trap or a left wing lock or any of those other things. They just man-to-man outplayed them.
Yeah.
Right? And when you've got a kid with 12 or 13 games like Ronberg and a guy like William Karlsson who hadn't played in about 5 weeks or something like that, tasked with the responsibility of playing against one of those two lines and then playing against what they call McDrysaddle, right?
Yeah.
The Golden Knights have their number. They have the formula to beat the Edmonton Oilers. And the fact that that game didn't sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? It didn't regress down to a shit show game with Evander Kane and Corey Perry and Darnell Nurse and rough stuff and cheap shots, and right?
Yeah.
They just outplayed them man against man, 60 minutes, 200 by 80 feet. The Golden Knights were the better team, and I believe that they have the formula to continue to be the better team. And I don't see Edmonton having the ability to evolve to where they'll be in a place where they'll be able to beat the Golden Knights 4 out of 7.
Yeah, I mean, adding
It's just my opinion.
Corey Perry doesn't do that. I'm sorry.
No, it adds a shit disturber and whatever. But you know what?
The Golden Knights have shown that they're not going to be drawn into that. Like
Corey Perry was invisible last night.
I didn't even
you
know
had to look at we had to look at our sheet.
He turned the puck over behind the net.
Right, and we had to look at our sheet to see what number he was.
Yeah,
that's how invisible he was. But I think that it was. You don't want to say signature win. I think it was an important statement made, not only for the team that they rose up and they played the hottest team without question in the NHL.
Yeah,
but I think it was also a statement to the NHL. It's like, listen, assholes, we may take a couple of nights off here and there, but don't get it twisted. We're still the defending Stanley Cup champs.
Yeah.
And without 3 of our primary starters, don't think that we're rolling over and giving up the cup that easy. So that's the takeaway.
I think a message was sent.
Yeah.
You know what?
League.
We are still the team to beat. I think that's the message that was sent. The players won't tell you that.
No.
But I think you and I watching that game last night, there were moments where Edmonton was a better team.
Yeah, it's called the second period.
Yeah. But the Golden Knights weathered that storm. I think they have the better goalie. I think Aiden Hill's better than Stuart Skinner. There's certainly no debate on the blue line.
No.
And I think depth-wise, the Golden Knights are a far superior team. Sure. In a series, Edmonton has the 2 best players. But after you get past McDavid and Draisaitl, Edmonton doesn't get the contributions from down the lineup like the Golden Knights do. Like
and they don't get them. And listen, no disrespect to Zach Hyman or to Ryan Nugent Hopkins.
No, they're good players.
Or to right, but if they weren't enabled by McDavid and Draisaitl, Nugent Hopkins isn't scoring 30 goals at the break.
No,
unless he's playing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yes. The Edmonton Oilers arguably have 2 of the best 3, 4, 5 players in the world.
Yeah, I think you could make a case for McCarr and Matthews and
Yeah, but you can also make a case for the Golden Knights know how to defend them.
well,
They had a
that's it.
bumpy start in the playoff series. They figured it out, right? And when they were talking about Edmonton, their all new defensive system, they're only giving up 1.5 goals a game, and their shot suppression and this, that, and the other thing. You know what Bruce said? I've been teaching that for 15 fucking years. I know how to play against it. Right? He kind of chuckled at it. It's like,
Yeah.
oh wow. So finally they're playing defense, and they're playing defense the way I know how to play defense, and I've been teaching it for 15 years since he was in the minor leagues and wherever Boston's
Providence, yeah.
Yeah, right? So I think it was an important win, not really as much for the Golden Knights, but they made a big old statement that said, listen, you still got to come through us.
Yeah, all roads run through Vegas.
Right. And that's what I think the biggest takeaway is. The other two big takeaways, Jesus Christ, man. Aiden Hill is a Vezina candidate goalie.
Yeah.
I don't want to say I'm surprised. I don't want to say that he's riding what he did last year, but man, oh man, talk about a guy who's just absolutely fucking locked in the zone, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's leading the league in save percentage.
I think he's
leading
in goals against as well.
I think in goals against as well, right? And he didn't miss a beat. You know, he was supposed to start before the New York trip, right? And he pulled up a little bit on the morning skate. I think it was the Ottawa game, maybe. He said he didn't feel right.
Yeah.
And then Bruce said last night, okay, we reset, we go back. But for a goalie who likes reps and likes shots and likes rubber and all that other stuff, the man didn't miss a beat.
Yeah.
He was a rock against the Islanders, right? I don't want to say he won the game last night, but if it wasn't him in net, I don't think that Edmonton scores one goal, and I'm going to just leave that just sort of to sit right there.
Well, here you look at some of the numbers for Aiden Hill, and first of all, his save percentage is of goalies who play every night. I'll just say number one goalies in the league. It's the best. It's the best save percentage of goalies who are the number one goalie.
What is he at 936 or something like that right now?
938.
And 950 plus since he came back.
Yeah.
107 out of 112 or something.
His goals against average of every night goalies is under 2. He's the only one under 2. Connor Hellebuck is 2.22. Joey Decord having a really good fucking season for Seattle. His is 2.32. But what really jumps out is his goals saved above average. And he's behind Hellebuck in that department. But again, of every night goalies, he's number 2 in the league. He's ahead of Thatcher Demko. He's ahead of Swayman, who I know a lot of people are talking about maybe him being a Vezina candidate. Look, I mean, he's having a season where if he can, he's going to need to play more games. Like he's going to
need to stay healthy.
He's going to I mean, I don't know what the outlook on him is to how many games he's expected to play the rest of the season, but he's going to need to get.
You got to think 20. There's 30 games left.
Well, the problem,
you got to think he's got to play between 18 and 20.
The problem is that only gets him to 38 games played if he gets to 20. I don't think that's enough for him to get over the finish line to win the Vezina. But, I mean, I think certainly if he plays like this the rest of the season, I don't really think he gives a shit about the Vezina. I think he wants to go back to back. Like you asked him.
I agree.
Hey, Aiden, and you know, he's a pretty mellow guy, easygoing guy, but I think he's emphatically going to say, listen, I want to win the cup again. And that's what I want from my goalie. Sure, the individual award is nice, and you know what? Maybe Connor Hellebuck gets it this year, or maybe Joey Decord or Swayman. I don't think Adin Hill really cares. What Adin Hill cares about is winning another Stanley Cup. Like, I know we're getting way ahead of ourselves here, but the legacy that guy would create for himself. I mean, look, he's on a prove it to me contract, but if he wins another one, that prove it to me contract goes to elite goalie in the NHL contract.
He's got 1 year left, right after this. I'm just really impressed of that. He's seamless. He was out so long, and he came back, and it was as if it's the same goalie that got him the cup last year.
I think
Maybe
he's
even
played
a little bit better.
I think he's
Yeah,
better.
yeah. I mean, he's certainly more confident in his own skin.
Yeah.
Right. But man, oh man, oh man. If he stays like that and Logan Thompson can stay in form, and Logan Thompson kind of rounded in form a little bit just lately before Hill got healthy.
Yeah.
Right. They're going to be a really tough out. And the last thing I want to talk about, and we kind of slurped on him a little bit last episode, but man, oh man, Nick Waugh is a fucking beast, dude.
Yeah.
He was called on when their top three centers were basically out of the lineup, and he jumped in, and he is, I'll say it, and I'll say it unabashedly, if he returns to the fourth line, and that's a conversation for another episode when Eichel gets back and stuff like that, he's by far the best fourth line center in the NHL, and there's nobody else in the conversation.
Yeah. And I don't think you move him to wing. I think you keep him at center.
No, you cannot. No,
he's that good. And the good problem for Bruce Cassidy is when you get Carrier back and you get Eichel back, your fourth line, not only is Nick Waugh the best fourth line center in the league, you probably have the best fourth line in the league. Because I think even though Keegan Kolesar doesn't score a ton of goals, I think Keegan Kolesar is a really underrated player. Like, I don't think he doesn't do a ton of stuff that shows up on the stat sheet, but
he doesn't cost him a lot of goals either.
What's that?
Doesn't cost him a lot of goals.
Well, that's it. He's a responsible player. He does everything they ask of him, and he's the ultimate team guy. Like, he's the guy who's willing to go out there and take a punch in the face if he has to help his team do that. I think he's developed into a really solid NHL player. And then you and I both love William Carrier. So I think you have Carrier sitting there, and I don't know when he's coming back, but that you get the band back together, and they haven't got a ton of games together this year because of injuries and stuff. But I think Nick Waugh has proven that he can do anything you ask of him.
I'm going to say something horrible right now, and people are probably going to be up my ass 5 miles.
Uh-oh. I'm a little worried.
Nick Waugh is making Chandler Stevenson expendable if Chandler Stevenson asks for too much money next year.
I don't think that's I don't think that's a hot take. Like, I mean, I think Stevenson,
he's due a raise. He's only making 2.6.
Well, that's it. Like, I think he's a guy who does not take the hometown discount. And if I'm him, I don't take the hometown discount, because you've got 2 Stanley Cups. You've proven that you're a good NHL player.
You've proven that Washington made a huge mistake.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's another, what do they give him for a 5th rounder?
Yeah.
Like, come on. But like, he's a guy who's proven he can be a top 6 center or top 2 center on a team. I think if I'm him, I want money. I want to make money. And I know people just think that everyone loves Vegas. And look, he's a guy who probably is criminally underpaid. I think he's a guy right now. You look at his cap hit, as you mentioned. He's only making 2.7. He's going to be 30. This is his probably one real opportunity to
Yep, for
make
sure.
big time money. And I don't think he's a guy he's not going to get a 5-year deal from anyone. I think he's probably looking at 3 or 4 years. But I think if I'm him, I want a significant raise. I want like $4 million. Like, to me, if someone offers Chandler Stevenson 4x4,
Gone.
Yeah.
Gone.
Yeah.
And I emphasize that point with the fact that Nick Waugh just signed 5x3.
Yeah. Talk about a bargain.
How about that contract? Nick Waugh wants a little bit of stability, and how about Nick Waugh at 5 years at $3 million? That, and I told Paul yesterday, that might turn out to be the best contract in the NHL.
Yeah.
Right. And he's now, with a significant audition time, has proved that he can play top two C minutes. Right. That line, Bruce has a wonderful problem when Eichel comes back. How do you break up Waugh, Marchessault, and Barbashev?
Yeah. Oof.
There's no justification to break that lineup. And then you've got Stone and Stevie, right? You've got Carlson with Amadio. Then you get into the whole pick the winger thing, Dorofeyev, Cotter, whatever. But the Marchessault line is arguably the best line that they have right now. I don't know how you break them up.
Yeah, it's a good and
It's a
bad
great
problem to have.
Right, it's a good and bad problem to have. So anyway, we've rambled for an hour. The producer is giving us dirty looks, even though we can't see him on camera. So we'll wrap up episode 68, the Jaromir Jagr episode. We were going to call it
his career.
Yeah, I know, right? I thought we would name this "Fuck You and Your Win Streak," but we'll come up with something funnier. Thanks as always to the Las Vegas Advisor, www.lasvegasadvisor.net, your key to everything Las Vegas. And Dr. John Pierce at agelessforever.net.
Man, that guy can fucking eat too, by the way.
What?
That guy can fucking eat.
Who?
John Pierce, Dr. John.
Oh, no, he's a machine. I'll try and find pictures of that piece of mutton he had in New York. Anyway, Dr. John Pierce, www.agelessforever.net. Hey, I think we have 199 subscribers.
Oh,
can one of you fucking people just bash the subscribe button for us, please? I know we were gone for a while, but we will be back on our weekly schedule here pretty soon. I want to give a Super Bowl prediction. I don't care. Fuck both of them. The Lions aren't there, so that's what I think about the Super Bowl. And that will wrap up episode 68 of Hockey Nights in Vegas. For Chris, my name is Eddie Rivkin, and we are out of here. Thank you very much. We'll see you next week.